Howdy, howdy, folks. AJ, Rebel with a Cause, here in Waldport at the park. If we take a look over in this direction, we can see that there is fresh groundwork that has been done here at the park to lay out a track that goes around this field here. I have seen a pile of sod over there that's obviously been freshly removed. There's also a pile of gravel sitting in the parking lot, presumably to go down around this track as some sort of base. I'm not quite sure what the final surface is. We'll have to ask tonight at the city council meeting. Could be gravel. I don't know if they're going to pave it. Maybe it's concrete. Who knows? We'll have to see. But in other news, I do have tips coming into me that someone has broken their leg here at the park recently. I'm going to reach out to that person sometime soon and see if they want to have a conversation about it. And let you all know how they feel about it. But this is all coming to you right before we go to the city council meeting here in Waldport. I hear Mayor Lambert is not going to be there tonight after having a surgery yesterday that she is still recovering from. Hope she has a speedy recovery. This meeting was delayed by Dan Cutter. I believe the message was because he did not have time to prepare for the meeting on a regular schedule. He let the council know that it would be delayed a week, I believe. So that is the information I have for you right now. We'll have to get into the council meeting and see how that goes. So let's get to it and see how it is, folks. Catch you there.
Good evening. Welcome to the City Council meeting for January 15th, 2025. I'm sorry, 2026? I'm always behind.
I hope he doesn't write any checks.
I do not. Can I get a roll call, please?
Yeah, Mayor Lambert, Council President Dunn,
Here.
Councilor Booth, Councilor Woodruff,
Here.
Councilor Morris,
Here.
Councilor Stevenson, here, Councilor Townsend.
Here.
All right, the quorum is present.
All right. And I guess Heidi is out for medical, so I wish her a fast recovery so she can get back. Does anyone want to do the Pledge of Allegiance? I know we did that before. I thought I'd bring that up. Okay. Let's go ahead and stand to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so it looks like the first thing is the consent agenda. And I know there's a lot of things on there. Does anyone have any questions or anything, especially about the budget summary, audit, or anything like that? Or does anyone want to just go ahead and approve those?
I did not have any questions. I'll make a motion to approve it.
We have a motion. Can I get a second? Second. Okay, we've got a first and a second to approve the consent agenda. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, now let's go to public comment. And it looks like our first person is Todd Swift.
Hey, before I start the 3 minutes, I'd just like to say, I'm snitching on Teresa. She waited till I signed in because she didn't want to go first. So I wasn't here last month. Don't know if you noticed.
We did.
Oh, I'm sure. I heard about the meeting. I think it's amazing that within 2 weeks of it being reported that you guys all worked together to confront a situation where we had an entity that we felt would target and harass citizens. And a strongly worded letter was written So, okay, good job on that. What about the complaints that have been pending since September? So within 2 weeks, you guys worked together and accomplished something. I've put in complaints since September. So has someone else. And here's the thing. We had our meeting, you guys and Township. That's all I ever asked for. You guys gave us the meeting. We had the meeting. We agreed to disagree. And we moved on. Greg asked nicely in a meeting, the last meeting I was at, hey guys, the holidays are coming up. Everyone back off of social media, spend time with your friends. So guess what? We had the meeting. I went away. I was like, okay, I'm done. I did what my neighborhood wanted me to do. No problem. Greg asked, hey, can we all back off of social media? Okay. I backed off. Everything was fine. I said nothing. Everything was fine. And then I would like to know if he follows your guys' direction, who told him to go put a stick in a hornet's nest and come on my forum and tell me how to run my free speech forum, and then at the same time call some citizens cowards on my forum? I didn't invite that. I did nothing to provoke him. And on top of that, should he be doing that when I have a pending complaint against him? I've done everything you guys have asked me. I've done it your way. This is ridiculous that we have an entity that's a federal agency that is known to target and harass people, and oh geez, we're going to band together and take care of that. But if someone local does it, we're going to form a barricade with the council and the city attorney so he can lob insults and attacks at me and be protected. This is ridiculous. This is a bigger pile of trash than anything in Lent Slough right now. And I'm kind of tired of it. And that's all I got to say about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Teresa is next.
I want to talk about Dan's Dump, is what I've named it. And the first time I noticed this is shortly after I moved here in 2020, in December of 2023. Then I learned about 6-ppd quinine, which is the stuff that's in all of our tires that poisons salmon, and we're already short on salmon. And it's in our tires, and it's not good stuff. I told Dan about the chemical that's in the tires shortly thereafter. And he shouldn't dump the street sweepings near the creek because it poisons the salmon once again. He then put up his gate and no trespassing sign. He continued to dump street sweepings there because I saw the street sweeper go right by my house. I'm an avid gardener. Anybody who knows me, if there's any kind of sunshine, I'm out there, even with my back issues. Then we had dump trucks speeding through the community, and everybody knows about me sitting on a 5-gallon bucket that did have weeds in it. Once the easement stuff was somewhat resolved, after countless requests at the city council meetings, just like Todd said, finally, I feel like we've sort of got resolution, but it was never documented. Think about that. Those things need to be documented. If it's one person thinks this and one person thinks that, and then we have to go get an attorney, that's not the way to get along with people. And yes, I did report it to the state police, which happened. And guess who called me? Michelle, your husband. Nice guy, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
and, um, and I saw the state police car go by my home, assuming someone was checking it out. And I didn't hear back right away, but I did late after I had already chose to write all kinds of letters to anybody who would possibly help this situation because I like my salmon. And then, while I was telling somebody about it, and I'm going to let them remain anonymous, they told me about the Isaac Walton donation of 2 properties. So I started researching it, I asked Dan for the information about it, and he said he couldn't find it or something. Anyway, and so I went to the county, and they're cheap, 25 cents a page. Like it. Um, Anyway, I found out that there's a lot of stipulations on that property. And because the Isaac Walton League, what they are is a conservation group. And after reading their webpage, I was just totally right on. Because I'm a native Oregonian, been 3rd generation, and I like my trees. Um, and the road that the city wants between the sewer plant and the grinder pumps cuts right through that property, right on the northeast corner. And I've told council before about the safety of the road, and I'm still struggling with that one. I don't want to let it go because I fear something's going to happen. And as Karma always does, she does her duty. Especially since I was driving up to Long Beach, and they they had a landslide there, and the way we're doing it doesn't look anything like what ODOT does it. Now for the grinder pump.
All right, Teresa, you have 5 minutes, just.
This is quick. I want to know how long that grinder pump is, and because I had heard Jaime say that it was 100 feet, and how are you planning on getting it in there? Those are the 2 big questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Next is AJ.
Howdy, everyone. So, back before the holidays, I was trying to meet Mr. Cutter over at the dump site or grinder station in question to just take a walk around and everything. And, you know, unfortunately, after what seemed like some runaround, we were not able to make that. Hopefully in the future we could organize that again now that the holidays are over. But I don't know. It would seem to me that if Mr. Cutter has the authority to, at will, decree that place no trespassing, then the extra steps that were brought up as soon as I took him up on his offer for a tour, they seemed unnecessary. I do wonder what the insurance people had to say about that trip. On a different note, and a lighter one, I was over at the park earlier, saw the new work being done on the track, all the sod tore up and the gravel ready to go down. Just a quick question, and I hope I haven't heard it before and just forgot it. What is going to be the final surface for that track?
Asphalt. Am I correct on that? Asphalt.
Asphalt. All right. Well, thank you very much, council. Have a good night.
Thank you, AJ.
Good meeting.
All right, that's all the comments. So let's go on to discussion and action items. The first is the budget schedule draft.
This is on page 24, and I would just ask that everyone look at it. And now is the time to provide feedback on any of these dates that are deal breakers. The ones that are underlined are where the council will actually be in attendance, as well as the budget committee on the April dates.
So we don't yet know if we have a full committee, but when
I-
we know that,
yes.
then
Yeah.
describe that process.
So if we have anyone who declines to participate who is on the budget committee, I will send out a note to council just letting them know that it's available. At the same token, at the same time, I will put a notice on the front page of the Waldport website, and I will put a notice on social media saying that we have a budget committee opening and soliciting letters of interest. We will bring those letters of interest to the council at the February meeting if that occurs, and the council at that time will make a decision, much like any other decision you make, on who to appoint the budget committee for that year. The budget committee meets effectively 2 times. On the 11th, we will hold the initial budget workshop. It'll start at 9 o'clock until it's finished. And then on April 28th, we will hold the budget public hearings. 25th. We will hold the budget hearings. And that will be an opportunity for members of the general public to address the budget committee with questions or concerns. At that time, if there are no changes or if there are amended changes, the budget committee generally recommends the budget for council adoption. That will then take place on May 21st at a council meeting. And again, that will be a public budget hearing where members of the public will also be able to weigh in again. And the budget, and the council can amend the budget at that time for adoption and then adopt the budget. And then we're done. So the budget committee really is only 2 Saturdays in April
Right.
that they
And I really, some of you are very interested in the finances of the city, and I would really recommend that you take a couple hours and come to those meetings, because they have a very thorough examination of, all the parts of it, how it's put together, why, what are the reasoning, all of that. It's very informative. So, open invitation from me. Please come.
And we go line by line pretty much. They're very long days, but they're needed.
My only conflict is April 11th, that's when they like do our annual tournament at the school, they switch weekends, I think. I don't know, but I think it was last year too.
What time?
I think that just affects me, I don't know, it's like an all weekend thing.
Does anyone else have a conflict at all with any of these dates?
I don't know, because we don't have game schedules for things work yet, but we'll make it work.
Yeah, normally we would do it a little earlier in April, but I was told very specifically that was absolutely forbidden. So
It was Easter weekend.
it was Easter weekend. And somebody's birthday, but
So we need a motion.
Motion, yep. Can I get a motion to accept these dates for the budget workshops?
All right, so moved.
We got a first. Can I get a second? Second. We got a first and a second. Everyone in favor?
Aye.
All right. No one opposed? Motion passes. The next is the grinder pump property DEQ results.
All right, so we had several complaints to DEQ about what's being colloquially called Dan's dump. So I'll speak to both of the 2 different groups that we met with. We met with DEQ Solid Waste and we met with DEQ Waterways. David Waltz from DEQ Waterways determined that there was no intrusion into the water, that there was some potential if we had a catastrophic failure of the roadway. And so the only thing he suggested was that we do a seismic study to see if there's anything we want to do. We've looked at what's necessary there, and the advice was simply that we just put a culvert down in the waterway. We may do that, but we're actually looking with our engineer, looking at some options that might eliminate the need for the connectivity right away. And that way it would allow us to pull some of that material back and let it naturally settle over time. Again, his observation that there was no violations present, and that he did not detect or did not believe that any material based on the location and sourcing of the material presented any hazard to the waterways. The Also, we had a on-site tour with Craig Phillip, who is the DEQ Solid Waste. It was his opinion that in the same vein, there was no material that seemed out of place on the location. And at the end of the day, that it was a appropriate fill. He did provide some guidance that will actually affect every contractor in town. We now have a easy form that we're putting together that anybody who's digging in town who might move waste anywhere will be able to fill out, and it's what's called a clean material assessment form, and it simply is the process that we went through, but it's the process that you go through to certify that any fill material that you're going to put anywhere is effectively clean material. But again, it was his determination that there was no violations and that there was no reason to remove or change the practice at the time. They hopefully will be providing, we asked for some letters, and they're hopefully providing the no violation findings in writing for us, but they both verbally confirmed that in front of multiple members of my staff and have discussed that over email. We're just waiting to get there's no violation indication. So at the end of the day, this was a tremendous amount of time and tremendous amount of resources that it took the city to go and provide all this documentation and respond to these legal claims. And it has really, really took a lot of time in November and December. And at the end of the day, it was all for naught because we did what we were expected to do and the material is what we expected to have. And we talked with Department of State Lands, we've talked with DLCD, and nobody has found any reason to change the pattern of what we were doing. The only recommendations we had were if we were to continue, how we might want to put a culvert in. Neither of us really like the idea of putting a culvert in because that does change the waterway and the habitat. We'd much rather try to find a way to go around it or pull just a small divertment in. So we're looking at options to not have to do a full culvert. And the reason simply is culverts are big, dark pipes that you put over the waterway that you can then run the pipe over the water or run the roadway over the water. Those are potentials for clogs or failures. And that's what we saw down on Highway 101, just south of town here, was a culvert under the highway that got plugged. And a property owner who had made a change in the stream and water flow. And that caused a pretty big hole. And when they unplugged the culvert, it caused part of the roadway to collapse. So, at the end of the day, we'd rather find a way around rather than through the stream. Any questions at all?
I do, I have a question. Did you move all the plastic pipe and stack it up?
As it was expected, yeah.
But you didn't find it there until the complaint was made. Did you
No,
move
we
all the
did-
sweepings and move them to a
Again,
new location and then cover them with the tarp?
Council, but you're out of order.
You asked for questions.
He's asking questions of the council. Dan, I would like to see if we can pressure them to, put it in writing.
Yep.
Because it's gonna continue to be a false narrative online, and if we have it in writing from them,
Their
we can squash
concern
it.
was just being able to produce that letter and get it up the tree by this date.
Okay.
Because I asked for it last week after I met with Craig, and he said, that's a really tight timeline. We don't work that fast. So I expect as soon as I get it, we will publish it and we will provide it to the council and the citizens.
thank you. Alright, so now we're at an ordinance. The Lincoln Water System Alliance, right? Yes, Alliance.
So you'll remember back, we tentatively joined this about a year ago. And the exact concerns that I had at the time have kind of played out, which was it seemed to be run by 2 or 3 people with a specific agenda. They were not asking for the members' input until they had already written the bylaws. And that my concern was the first thing they were going to do was ask for a pile of money. the first thing that happened was they asked for a pile of money to hire staff. They actually originally asked us to add a 50-cent per user per month add to everyone's water bill. I and several other communities pushed back instantly on that. And then they started refining and lowering the asks over time. At the end of the day, however, there is still no clear, the original statements that they made about OSU and the grants have not materialized. Matter of fact, OSU has nothing to do with them right now that we're aware of. The project is looking at hiring consultants to do a lot of the work, and is already talking about a budget in the $75,000 to $100,000 range per year to have this group meet. Many of the mission statements of the group are accomplished through member organizations that we already belong to. More importantly, they have excluded some key players, and in the makeup of the board, they added some people who do not have, like Lincoln County, who do not have water customers. They added groups like the Economic Alliance, which again are not beholden to anyone in terms of supplying water. And it became very clear that the people who were actually supplying water and were worried about water rights were really having a diminished voice in that. So it is my recommendation at the time, along with communities like Newport and others, that we simply withdraw from the organization. Let them spend a few years, and maybe they will find a foothold that makes sense and that we can reapproach it. But right now, it is throwing money at a lot of expensive consultants without a clear mission. Jaime, I don't know if Jaime's here. You went to that meeting. Did you feel that there was any clear direction coming out of that meeting at all?
No, I didn't feel they were ready to do what they wanted to.
So that is, I sent somebody who didn't have my biases to the meeting because I felt that I was going to walk in there with a lot of like, all right, this seems like it's nuts. And as you can tell, it's still the same consensus. None of the water districts are participating, which for South County is a big deal. That's Seal Rock, that's Southwest Lincoln, and Newport's not participating. So this makes it really problematic. Some of the smaller communities, but they're all now just getting the big ask for money. So, again, the rubber meets the road when you want cash. So I think this group will, dwindle down here pretty quickly.
Is this the young lady that came last year to our meeting? And we were asking the questions, and she really didn't have the answers to anything. They really didn't have their staffing. And when we asked about money, they said it wasn't going to be an ask for any money or anything substantial. Yeah, I remember this. Yeah, okay. All right.
So you need a motion for us to decline.
Fine.
Yes, a motion to withdraw from the organization for the time being.
I so move to withdraw from the
All right, so we got a motion on the table to remove ourselves from the organization. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And just to be correct, it's the Alliance.
The Lincoln County Water System Alliance.
Lincoln. All right, now we go to an ordinance 816.
And this is one of these cleanup things. We have a lot of legacy code. Our code was officially codified back in 1996. And that means all the ordinances up to then were put in one big book and created as Waldport Municipal Code. The challenge here is that some of this language goes back to the 1920s and 1930s. In this case, this language is not that old, but it referenced positions that don't exist, and it referenced a process that has not existed for as long as staff who are here can remember. This is not how we do it. To give you an idea, we have on average about 1 to 2 shut-offs a month. And the process that is in place right now would require us to send almost 170 letters a month out just to give everybody notice ahead of time whereas we have a much more practical way of doing it. We give everybody a little bit more grace time, and so we end up only doing, how many door hangers would you say we do?
We did 14 this month,
Yeah.
and had one shut off.
So this is kind of the average, this is the process. So what we're trying to do is change it from the process that is in the code from way back in the day that relies on a position that doesn't exist, to the process that we have now that provides the water owner a much better connectivity or much better responsiveness to notification. And we've actually added one piece. I said it was reflective of our current practice. We've added one piece, which is instead of just putting the door hangs, we'll actually now try to make a phone call within about 48 hours of the shut off, just to make sure that we are reaching the property owner. Oftentimes, when you put a door hang, you're just reaching the renter, which is great, except for sometimes the renters are not in a position to pay. The problem there is if the renter doesn't pay, it becomes a liability to the property. And what we need to do here is make sure that the property owner is protected. So we've put a mechanism in place to better do that. I had a conversation with one of the shutoffs that we just recently had with the property owner, and he is having tremendous problems for these folks. And we were able to work through what his options were, how the city could assist in not making things worse for him while he dealt with a very challenging rental situation.
So you noted in the introduction that we don't have a water superintendent, but I see that that language is still in what you're proposing here on page 35.
So the proposal's actually on page 36.
Right.
Page 35 is the old
Oh,
language.
that's the old, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, all right, got it.
I thought the same thing.
Yeah, we wanted to make it just a little simpler, focus more on the letters that we send, the door hangs, and then a phone call. And again, this is effectively, with the exception of the phone call, this is effectively the practice that we've now been doing for quite a while. At least, well, Robin, you've been here 10 years. I would imagine that it went that way for quite a while before that. It's what's called a prescriptive practice, which is, this is the practice that we actually do. And so we are just reflecting the language to show that we are following that practice.
Another problem is the snail mail.
Oh,
I mean, it's taking 6 to 10 days for people to get these letters.
How many hearings do we ever have a year also? Do you ever have a hearing review?
No.
You ever have
Never
them?
had one.
In general, if somebody has a problem with their bill, we'll take a look at it. And it, much like the ability that the council provided for the city manager to make a correction if one was necessary. If we found an actual problem with the bill, we'll generally fix it for people. Our goal here is not to punish people. Our shut-off process is usually not problems with the bill. It's problems paying the bill. And then we work very hard to refer. If Rick was here, I would point out that we often send people to South Lincoln Resources. They have a network chain that reaches out to several different providers, several different churches in the area that provide a way to pay these water bills. And I know that we have other community members that often will come in and pay some delinquent water bills for people.
We also do what we call a promise to pay, and we will extend it out, because say their payday is until the 20th. They'll say, my payday is the 20th, we write them up for a promise to pay, and if we haven't heard from them by the 22nd, then we notify them again. And then we work with them.
So I think I need to read this ordinance, is that correct?
You need to read the ordinance by title twice.
Twice. All right, so ordinance number 816, an ordinance replacing chapter 13.04.240 to reflect the practices of the last 20 years and declaring an emergency. Ordinance 816, an ordinance replacing chapter 13.04.240 to reflect the practices of the last 20 years and declaring it an emergency.
I move the adoption of ordinance 816.
Can I get a second?
My second.
We got a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ordinance is approved. While we're on kind of talking about water, I wanted to ask a question. The new water meters,
Yes.
will that allow staff or I guess the office to shut the water off locally instead of our guys going out there?
No. Some of them, we have the ability for some of them. So if we have what we call frequent flyers, we have certain customers that regularly get their water shut off.
Okay.
They are given lots of notices to pay, but they regularly have an issue where the water is shut off. That would allow us to replace their meter with one that has a automatic shut-off valve that we could then control remotely, so that we are not spending the time and the cost associated with turning off that meter. That can be used as a method of facilitating a customer who, may need their water shut off more regularly. We have some people who have their water shut off while they're gone and then come back and get it turned on.
No, we don't do that now. We don't do that anymore.
We don't do it anymore?
No,
Okay.
but because there's the code that they have to have a shut off valve.
Yeah, oh, so they're doing it now themselves,
Yes.
yeah. No, it gives us different capabilities.
But they're more expensive, and so we didn't get those for every meter.
But it allows you also to see water usage
I
increase
see
immediately.
it, if you have one of the new meters, I see it every day.
So if someone's gone and they have a broke line, you're gonna detect that and call them.
We get an alert
Okay.
after it's done it for a certain amount of time.
So have you seen that happen yet?
Yes.
Okay, great.
'Cause I believe in the past, we've had some houses where they flooded.
We had a water forgiveness today where the person was notified, and unfortunately they didn't took a long time to fix it. But we have probably 1 to 5 a month, depending on the month, where we do an adjustment. The facility has had a leak that went on for a protected period of time, and then we forgive a portion of their water bill for that leak. Because these leaks can use a tremendous amount of water, and you use, say, 50 units of water, and you're looking at a $500 bill.
Today's example was 57 units of water, and their normal usage is 8. So,
And you were able to catch
And it
that.
brings it back to their monthly average for a 12-month span.
yeah, I write up all 12 months and do that.
So is it the water that you forgive though, or is it the sewer portion?
It's actually both right now.
Okay.
You gave me the ability to do both, because we had a single mom who had a leak of water, and we specifically created that rule because that single mom was still saddled with a huge bill for water. And so, very graciously, about 2 years ago, you gave me the ability to do the full forgiveness on both sides. To give people an example, the difference in the water units there was almost 50 units, 47 and 8. 50 units of water, every unit of water is 750 gallons. So you're looking at over 20,000 gallons of water that was lost. It's a lot of water.
And the sewer charges per unit are more than water charges per unit. So that water wasn't going down the sewer, it was being flooded into wherever it was going. So those sewer charges that rack up definitely get averaged back to what that person normally would have paid that month.
So now with the new meters that show when there's a leak or a problem, so I assume then you notify them, so then if they don't take care of it, if they're just too busy to take care of it for a month, then what's our forgiveness?
So technically, our code says that when notified, a water customer is responsible for correcting the problem within 48 hours, or we can shut it off based on emergency.
Of course, that's to get a plumber.
Yeah, again, we have to recognize that we're not in the valley, there are not 20 plumbers that call, there are only a few. So we're still gonna have forgivenesses. The difference will be often that these will be a lot smaller.
But that's another reason for them having their own shut-off valve,
Oh,
because there's
Yeah.
people that can go out, turn it on when they need to use it, and then turn it back off. They can fill up stuff.
So even if it continues to leak, it's not leaking
Right,
all the time, maybe while they have to shower or while they're,
yeah,
trying to
or
clean
all
up.
day and all night, yeah.
Yeah, it's not just pumping out into nowhere.
And so the new meters have also shown a few customers that they have a continuous leak, like a bathtub that's dripping, because it will show that they have used 24 hours a day water.
Yeah, which, nobody does.
Well, some of them do.
Is the installation of the new meters complete?
No, we're
You're
only
still-
about 400 in.
Still doing it?
Yeah,
How much left?
about 1,000.
About 1,000. They can do what, 4 or 5 a day
They,
at most,
They usually
if they're
do-
not doing other things.
yeah, but they get called off for so many days.
And the problem is downtown, when I asked Dan about this too, and downtown has a lot of older pipes. So it's not as easy as just, like my house, and Susan got hers, 10 minutes, they were in and out.
Yeah.
Downtown's not that easy, they go to put it in, they break a pipe, or the pipe's fragile, then they gotta dig it up. So downtown's taking a lot longer.
They
To get those
did
in.
Green Lane 2 days ago and were able to get 9 done. They've never turned in 9 in a day. But those are all newer houses.
It does make a difference.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So there's still 1,000 left
Yep.
to be done.
Yep, and they're cranking through them as fast as we can. It's one of the reasons that, as some of the projects come up in the city, we are hiring contractors to do the outside projects that normally we would do in-house, so that our crew can be focusing on getting through the meters. Because we really want to get all of these installed as quickly as we can. It's very tough because even if you hired an outside plumbing crew to install the meters, generally we still need to have staff on hand because there are also, we have to dig out the meters often. They're often buried in mud and silt. And finding the meters, making sure it's at the right house, making sure you still would end up having staff going along with it. This way, we've got 2 crews out there doing meters as best I can. The reality is that often they come to a meter that's got a problem and it takes a little while to get it installed.
I'm glad we're getting them installed. You said about 400 plus have been installed so far?
Just right at 400.
Okay.
I think it was 399.
All right, so now we're at the manager's report. Looks like we have a couple of them.
Yeah, so I'm gonna jump kind of between two. So in December, we were doing the final push on the sidewalk. I'm happy to report that the sidewalk is effectively complete. We have some work for property owners to restore their yards to the original condition. As I told one property owner who came in, I'm treating everybody's property as if it were my house and making sure that the contractor has done it the way that I would expect to go out and look at it after the sidewalk's done. Contractor's not really happy about that, but at the end of the day, these folks have put up with a lot for the last several months as we've done this project. I want to make sure that they're all pretty happy. But I've walked the sidewalk now from front to end several times. The fencing is now up and complete, so it's a lot safer. We do have a series of projects. So on the January list, I listed out some of the things that we have remaining to do that are not part of the contract. We have a lighted crossing to install at the school. We have, and this is dependent on getting jurisdiction from the county, so we're working on that.
So what are the hangups on that? Just,
The county actually has to go through the process.
okay.
And unlike the city, the county is not expeditiously looking at this. We would like to put a stop sign up at the school entrance and explore how that works in terms of traffic control. We get a lot of complaints at pickup time about people not being able to turn left because everybody kind of gets in a bottleneck. We're hoping that stop sign would allow people to take turns and maybe move traffic faster. It certainly did work when that was implemented up in Newport. It really did make a difference. Once we get jurisdiction, we're going to put some minor speed humps on Crestline to slow traffic down around the school and around those long straight stretches. ODOT won't let us, totally change the speed limits up there like we might like, but we would like people to actually follow the speed limits. We've done multiple traffic studies with the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office and ODOT, and the conclusion is that 95% of the traffic speeds over 10 miles per hour more than the posted speed limit on those streets. We need to paint the curb and add reflectors. That, as soon as we sign off with the contractor, we've already talked with a couple striping companies. Our biggest challenge there is you don't usually paint in the winter when it's cold. So we're going to get to it as quickly as we can. And then line striping. We've had a real hard time getting a company to come in and do the line striping. And for reasons that we don't understand, the county did not finish the line striping on their own road. We will be out there in the next week while the weather's nice, however, putting some crossbars where stop signs are, just so that people can recognize where the stop sign is. Because now that we've repaved that section, if you're not paying attention and you're not seeing the stop sign, you're just driving right through it. So we do need to get those in place. As most of you have seen, the sewers in the industrial park, phase 1, which is over by the animal shelter, is complete through the school. The animal shelter just posted something about that they hope to be moving in and opening within the next month or so, but they were not willing to give dates, so we're just very excited that they will be doing this. The wastewater project down at the wastewater plant is, we're just waiting until we get out of the super rainy period. It's a changeover that involves a lot of flow concerns, and so it'd be better to do it in summer when flow is, considerably down. All sewer systems have what's called infiltration from rainwater, and so we get much higher flows in the winter because of that than in summer.
So yearly we were doing things against I&I, which is that infiltration. Are we still on that train?
Yes, we have done a lot of what we can. The problem is now some of the last remaining things are capital improvement projects, replacing huge capital sewer lines and sewer mains. That's going to be really hard. So we're focusing on what we can to minimize it, but really at the end of the day, it's really just a problem for us for about 4 months.
So are we about to that point where we've done everything we can do, but
Yes.
waiting for
Yeah.
money?
We still have, at the end of the day, I was just talking with a company a little bit ago about the number of homeowners who drain their rainwater into the sewer system unlawfully. And there are ways to detect that, but I don't know that it's worth the money to hunt that down. I think we just end up accepting a little bit of that irregardless and just do the best we can. Southworth Park, we have the track that's going in place right now, that's going over where the old cinder track of the high school there was. And so that has been scraped clean, and we've got that down to base. We've got all the rock ready. We put in a bunch of new storm drains, yesterday? Today. So we have a bunch of drainage that's in place. And then as soon as the contractor's back, they're going to start putting the rock down, and we've got a bid from Road and Driveway. We're about $5,000 higher on that entire project than I predicted, but that's well within the margin of budget for that. And we'll have that nice asphalt layer all done. We're also doing some work by the stands for the dugouts, and a pathway from the parking lot over to the track, so it'll be easier. More pathways will come, but we're just doing the pieces that we can, then we move on to the next piece and the next piece. We're preparing some bids for Cedar. I'm actually going to reach out to Road and Driveway tomorrow morning and see if we can't get a quick bid on the steep portion of Cedar. I would love to see if they can't do that here, if they're not too busy within the next couple of weeks while we have nice weather. That road really concerns me. We have not been able to successfully stop the leak that's coming up through the road. And I think by repaving that and creating a hard cap, that will force that water through the current drain that we have in place, because it'll be the least path of resistance. That road's always going to be a problem. Cedar and Crestline up the hill are just horrible roads, and they're going to be horrible roads. I'd love to go back 100 years and not have them the way they are, but it is what it is. We are in the middle of the web change right now. I believe February 16th is our go live date on the new website. I'm hoping to have the material switched over by the end of this month to send it all out to you so that you can take a look at it and say, hey, this works, or where does this go? Why is this way? It will be very similar to our old site in terms of material. We are doing it, or I'm doing it by hand specifically because there is a lot of material that was copied over from our other website years ago when we migrated that we really don't want to retain. It's outdated information. There was even at one point somebody had put material up there that had customers' information on it, and it took a lot of work to get that out of there. This way we know every piece that's put in place is new, is reflective of our current code, our current rules, And then we can see where the missing pieces are and start to fill in that information.
So what are the improvements that we expect for both us and for the public?
I think the biggest one will be public notification. We're going from a system that the public is required to go to our site to look for notifications when things happen, to a system where they'll be able to opt into a notification system, so that when we do a update or we change a meeting time, it will actually push out to all those who have signed up. And that will really allow us to do a much better job when we have an issue. Right now, we communicate it via Facebook. Well, that's just one of many social media platforms. As my daughter says, she has not used Facebook ever, and she's now in her 20s. So, really, this next generation, Facebook is kind of the thing that we're using, and it will go away. And there will be Instagram or the next TikTok or the next iteration. This allows us to do just pushing out messages when we have a water leak, when we have another issue like that. That will be how we distribute that information.
So how about searching?
How do you mean? Searching for
If
content?
you're interested, obviously lots of people are interested in this, that, or the other thing about the city.
So it does.
Is there a better search?
It does have a integrated search engine that is better than what is currently there. And hopefully the menus are a little bit more streamlined in how to get to some of the content. That was a huge problem in the last one, is the menus make sense if you work in city government, but if you don't work in city government, you may not know how to look for something. This does have a more driven search system, and we're actually looking, they just talked to me yesterday, 2 days ago. They're now integrating what's called an AI butler into the system, where in the future we'll be able to actually toggle an AI search engine where they will type it in and the AI will have searched it and will be able to provide some of the responses to you. You'll see that a lot now when you use Google. You say, do I want this or do you want AI assistance? Click AI assistance and you get a much more in-depth review of that material.
But how about accuracy?
It's AI, so it's anybody's guess. We have corrected the caps on the top of the interpreter center. That was where a lot of the leaking was coming in. What we've identified now is that the little metal stripes that come down the sides, the water is being forced by the wind up through there and leaking in. So we've been going back and forth with the contractor today about how we take those caps off and seal underneath, or whether we just apply a silicone bead of some sort at the caps. It would be much better to take the cap off and apply the sealant. The problem is that this type of metal roof is not common. It was used by municipalities 20 years ago. It's not as commonly used now because it's very expensive. And so they're uncertain of how to reaffix those stripes to sustain our winds. So we may end up just going with a hard seal on each of the seams.
Whatever works.
Yes. Jumping into some of the January stuff before I finish out the December, we have been awarded a safety action plan grant in the amount of $397,000. It's very important to note this $397,000 will never touch the city at all. This is all being administrated through a partnership with multiple cities in the COG. They will be the keepers of all of this. They will just start a series of meetings and a series of municipal gatherings to basically figure out what is our best traffic safety plan that we can come up with. The goal of this is to produce a report that will allow us to better go after grants that will provide money for lighted crossings, for street lights, and for better pedestrian and bicycle safety.
So this is not safety action plan for emergencies?
No, no, this is geared around, so right now, every city does it a little bit differently. You have to follow what's called the MUTCD when you do anything on the streets. But every city has a different way of accomplishing that through the MUTCD. So it all looks a little bit different. One of the things that they're hoping to get out of this is a uniform system for Lincoln County so that every lighted crossing looks the same, so that every pedestrian safety access looks the same. And by doing that, then we can apply for multi-million-dollar grants that would do huge portions of the county in these crossings. ODOT is very interested in this because one of the things that was mandated by a ODOT lawsuit that they lost was accessible pedestrian crossings. So a lot of people have said, hey, why don't you have lighted crossings up? And we are actually going to defy ODOT and put some lighting crossings up. But ODOT maintains that before you do that, you have to take the entire crossing and make it ADA accessible, which usually means ripping it out, redoing the access way, redoing everything. It was about $375,000 per crossing when they did the analysis for Waldport.
Isn't that what they're supposed to do though, by?
They have to do it, but they're in a list and ODOT's funding is not great. So we are very far down in that list. They did a little bit of Lincoln City, Newport got a grant, did a couple spots, but there are a ton of locations that just haven't been done.
It's the whole state, right?
It's the whole state. So we're hoping that this will give us an avenue to getting a lot more grants that will be, instead of just one city or another, that we can apply for a grant that would be regional, and then they would do just a regional application. I'll tell you, the last meeting I had with ODOT on the crossings was a couple years back, and they had over 35 engineers on the Zoom call. This is why ODOT has budget problems. We had quite a few trees come down. You know, it's very important to note that, you know, when a tree falls from private property, the city will cut it up and generally try to leave it for the property owner on the side of their property to address. Some trees that we will specifically take and haul away. We're still working with PUD because PUD's left quite a mess to get everybody's power back up. We don't fault them for that, but we do need to get those messes cleaned up. And there are just trees everywhere. So over time, and it will likely be into the summer as people are hauling out and taking care of some of the trees. We've got a lot of requests for the trees along the sidewalk that fell. Unfortunately, those are all private property owners. So the trees that fell across the sidewalk, we cut up and moved out of the way. The trees that fell the other direction, that's the property owner's purview. That's their wood, so we can't go take it. Or we can't give it to anybody else to take that. Again, I talked earlier about the flooding south of town. We unfortunately had a property owner who blocked, filled in a wetland and covered a stream. That has been communicated to the Department of State Lands. However, that changed the water flow pattern and created a large amount of water right next to the road. That's created a very deep culvert right there. And when that got plugged, it created some significant flooding along 101 by Copeland. The downside is when they blew out that culvert to get it to flow again, it collapsed the side of the road, which is generally what happens when you have massive amounts of water flowing really fast. Jimmy has retired. Jimmy Rodriguez, our landscaper and all-around great guy. So we are in the process of just getting everything you know, HR approved as it were, to get that pushed on the website. You have to do a lot now when you hire somebody to make sure that you're providing all the information about the job. We use a service out of Eugene to do some of our back-end HR stuff. And so that will allow us to get those jobs posted.
Well, Jimmy our sort of, he did a lot on our lighting, and now I see people are complaining because the lights are still up and operating.
Yeah, well, I chose to keep the lights, you know, it's dark and just any little thing. Yes, the Christmas lights are up. My wife also gets driven nuts because the Christmas tree is still up in our house. And she's like, when are we gonna take that down? I'm like, but I like this season and it's dark out. I go to work and it's dark, I come home and it's dark. So a little bit of extra light. We do have them on timers. Could be. Sorry. We do have so we do have a couple different positions. We're going to also be hiring a cleaning service, and we're working with Pioneer right now to get remote capability to be able to put cameras up by some of the locations that are being vandalized, so that we can reopen the bathrooms, say downtown. We can reopen the facilities up at the skate park. We're just having a lot of problems with vandalism, and it's really hard to deal with. And it's very costly. These doors, when they kick them in, you know, you're looking at an $800 to $1,000 replacement for the doors and locks. So, you know, unfortunately, we've had to close these for a while, and we'll be returning them as soon as we can. Representative Gomberg and I had a conversation. The funding request that we're facilitating for the fire district is at the top of the list. This will allow them to pay off the loan to us for the fire hall and do several $100,000 worth of improvements to that building. And again, this is a lot driven by the city making sure that that request is on the top of the list.
So then does that funding also allow us to do the water pressures?
So it allows us to do a bunch of different options. And that will, when that actually gets done,
All right.
that will come to the
We'll
council, and we'll
discuss.
get to decide,
All right.
and allow, solicit for community input, but we'll get to decide how we want to spend that money.
Okay.
The gazebo, so we are attempting to save quite a bit of money. We got quotes on coverage of some of the generators and the pump units that were very expensive over at the wastewater plant. We're instead spending money on just a consumer gazebo that's got a high wind rating, and engineered for a high wind rating. And that area is kind of in an alcove back there, so we don't expect it to ever get near that amount of wind. But the goal here is that we're gonna put a gazebo cover over it, and then the guys can easily side the gazebo. Then that will protect the generator, that will protect the lift station, without having to spend a tremendous amount of money on some of these, other structures. Here's the bad news, the sheriff's office contract. So when we negotiated the contract this year, we had a new sheriff, and he asked for a different provision in the contract. The previous sheriff always fulfilled the contract deputies first, shortchanging the county as he needed. This sheriff felt differently, and he said very explicitly that while he loves the contracts and feels that they're very important, he cannot shortchange the county at the expense of the contract. And so he had a provision in there that basically said if the needs of the county were such that he would have to pull back deputies from the contract service to the county service. That has happened. They had a slew of deputies all at one time go out on leave and leave the service. So they are very shorthanded. And then one of our deputies got promoted to sergeant, Sergeant Dorsey. And so we are now down to one deputy. However, that's the deputy that we share with Jan. So we are now down from effectively the 2 deputies 3 years ago. We went down to 1.5 deputies when we started sharing with Yahat. We're now down at half a deputy. We're still getting very good response. We worked out a system on how we could send problems in to both the lieutenant and the sergeant so that they would get action. I've seen very good results from that, but the reality is we have less police coverage than we used to. And I don't know, they anticipate that this is not going to be remedied until probably the end of the contract. And that's just, there's nothing we can do about it. So we are working as best we can with what we have. And like I said, we've gotten good coverage, but it does mean that some things are harder than they were.
What about security services? Is there any look
So,
into that at all?
yeah, we've looked into that at all. We had some issues contracting with that early on. It's tricky because they rely on, security services relies on the sheriff's office to supplement when they actually find a problem. So at the end of the day, it's still the effective of somebody calling.
And
Are
the
we gonna
sheriff's
get a
office, I
reduction?
understand, is prorating the contract based on the reduced deputy, right?
Yes, so it will save us a lot of money out of that, but that's not what we wanted. We wanted that. And then lastly, before I get into the last piece, the drinking water protection plan is a project that the city's been working on now for the last few months. We are going to be posting material and hosting a public meeting here on January 29th. It will run from approximately 4 to 6. The goal here is that it will be effectively like a poster session where we have placards explaining the process. We'll have staff here explaining what it is. But effectively, this is a grant that we received to do work on creating a plan that talks about the different and potential hazards to our drinking water supply and how we might mitigate those and what plans that we have. One of the key pieces of this, and one of the things that I've often been asked is, how do we buy the forest land around our streams so that we can ensure that we're not going to see spray, logging, that type of thing. This plan is fundamental in us being able to then go and point to this plan and ask for funding from different entities to be able to buy or transfer some of this land. So this is really important. Again, January 29th from 4 to 6 p.m. So the last thing I wanted to talk about goes back to the December meeting. We are having some significant issues in simply, complaints by the mayor, and that then results in citizen complaints to multiple agencies. I'm not going to get into, whether the citizens have the right or not have the right to do that. The problem here is that some of these complaints involve specifically the mayor lying to the police and providing false statements to both the citizenry and to the council and to the sheriff's office and the sheriff's deputies. We've documented this. Unfortunately, as we've been told by the sheriff's office, it is okay to lie to the police. That was a new one for us. But it is creating a real problem. And it's creating a real challenge in terms of manpower and timing. The amount of time that I've spent on complaints generated in the last 2 months has impacted our ability to do simple things like get some of the financial reports that need to be reviewed and sent out to the auditors out, because we have a specific timeline requirement for these legal complaints. And we're doing the absolute best we can. I was supposed to take 2 weeks off during Christmas break. I, spent a bunch of time back in the office. The reality is that these complaints are really becoming a hazard to our ability to continue working on everything. Once we get the stuff done, we're then able to refocus back, but it is becoming a real manpower challenge. I'm working really hard to delegate as much out as I can, but simply put, a lot of this stuff just needs to be sat down and crunched and the numbers put through, or the legal response is written. And it's far cheaper for me to write the response to DEQ than to hire our engineer to write the response to DEQ. But the reality is just in the DEQ complaints, we probably have 2 to 3 man weeks of time just in dealing with those, providing the responses, having the different conversations, having the meetings, doing site tours. So it is time consuming. And I just want to bring that to council's attention. We're doing the absolute best we can, but we can't, when we get one of these complaints, we can't ignore it. We can't just say, okay, well, we'll get back to you in 2 months. We had very tight turnaround times on some of the responses required by law. And so, we had to do those. And so that's just a reality that we're facing.
What about our I know it's a new year, our training, is that gonna be?
You're about to get a whole bunch of information about that from me very shortly. I've set up 2 tentative training dates for the public meeting law training that you're required to do in your terms. They're both in February. When I get a response from LOC and OGEC, we will reach out to you and say, okay, which one do you want? And we'll host both of them if we have to. They're about 3 hours or 4 hours long, so unfortunately, you all got to do them, so you will do them, but we have set it up so that you can go via Zoom. But they do make sure that they have active polls during it, so it's not turn on Zoom and then go watch a cooking show. It's turn on Zoom and actually pay attention. But you'll have to, all of you are required by Oregon law to complete that training during your term of service. There will also be some budget training that we make available as a recording for you to watch. And that way you can just review that before the budget meeting, we're doing that this year as an option for everybody so that when they come into the budget meeting, I don't explain so much of the budget process to everyone. I can just touch on the highlights of how we move through it, but everyone who wanted to kind of watch that, half an hour, 45-minute training video. And believe it or not, none of this stuff is free. LOC charges for everything. OGEC charges for everything. So, at the end of the day, we do have a training budget, but all of that will be coming up. Generally, we try to do trainings in February. Also, I'd like to thank Councilor Townsend. He came in and met with me. We had been talking about doing a project where he wanted to do a presentation. We're going to try to set that up so that it happens at the same time that we do our council workshop training. That way it just flows more naturally. The topics that he showed me fit very well into kind of that council workshop ability. And that way we've got more time to work on the presentation. As you'll know, we still don't have the camera up. They're about 6 weeks out from when we get the equipment. So we're going to try to find another company or an electrician who can get some of the wiring and infrastructure run for us, so that we can have some of those pieces in place. Again, because we'd really like to have just a turnkey solution instead of having to bring in all the equipment every time, plug it all in, and then unplug it all and take it back. That just leads to things being forgotten, batteries forgetting to be charged. We really want to have just an integrated system. So. But I appreciate the councilor's patience with us, that we can present that in a more full format, and be able to get that done. One of the things that we do need to do is pick a council workshop date for February. I do note that we have 2 members who are not here, given the concerns recently about not having everyone weigh in. I would like to suggest that we do, maybe pick a couple tentative dates and then reach out to Rick and Heidi and say, hey, are you available these days? And I get with sports and kids and everything else, it's tough. It's tough to make commitments outside of certain weekdays. It's tough to make stuff on the weekend. But historically, February, we've always been able to get most everybody there for a few hours.
Are we talking like a weekend? Or
Yes.
are we talking like a weekday?
Ideally, it's very hard weekdays. Ideally, we would do a weekend, preferably Saturdays, although that is, again, entirely at the purview of council. I would say the 14th is probably bad.
That's my game.
But I'm totally game. My wife might not be, but that's, as long as I cook her dinner, she'll be fine. But we have the 7th, the 14th, the 21st, and the 28th. I would suggest any of the last 3 days would be the most appropriate times.
Could we do it in the evening instead of in the morning?
You
Because we both have basketball.
You can it is your choice when this meeting happens. You just need to tell me when and where.
Didn't we already have some date in February? I guess that was yours. For the budget.
Yes, that's, I've got some long
It was
meetings
just
in
much longer in
February.
February.
We have a potluck.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm an absolute no for the 28th.
So 21st?
So,
It has to be in February, it'd be like the first week of March.
So here's the only problem. The workshop is also when we talk about goals, and then we bring the goals back to the public at the March meeting. And that really affects the budget, or I should say, that can affect the budget. If somebody's got a harebrained idea, like a huge playground, that has a huge effect on the budget. So we really like to have those discussions with enough time that I can build in, that I can get quotes for ideas that what people want, and that I can have that information when I bring it back to the council in the March meeting, so that we have an informed goal session that then allows me to finish the budget with real numbers.
So if the 21st is out, then that leaves the 7th.
The
and
21st,
28th.
Oh, 28th, okay, so the 7th or the 21st, are those the 2 dates you're gonna?
Or you could do it on the 14th. I'm just, I was kind of being flipped that that's a bad date for some, but
Well, if we're gonna do it in the evening too, that,
That might go over poorly with some.
yeah.
So we can throw, so we're gonna throw out two dates right now, the 7th and 21st, right? And then we need to find.
Ideally, the 21st would be perfect.
I have nothing on the 21st. I mean, I think we should throw out the 7th and 21st with 21st, you know, or at least my first pick.
7th?
7th or
The
the
7th?
21st.
Oh,
Yeah. And we've already had somebody.
Yeah,
Jamie
28th.
can't do the-
Yeah, 28th, I
You
can.
couldn't do it the evening.
The 28th, I might have time for a volleyball tournament.
It could also be a Thursday. You know, generally, we seem to have Thursdays. We could also pick a Thursday.
And just do a long.
And just, well, not a long council meeting, but we could do a different Thursday where we could pick.
A long workshop.
Well, if we can get the 7th and the 21st worked out. then-
Yeah. So why don't I send out, if it meets your approval, I'll send out a request on the 21st with a backup of the 7th and see what people say.
you guys good with that? I'm good with that. All right. Now we go, we gotta do council comments or concerns. Anything you guys wanna talk about before we close this meeting?
Go eat at Scotia tonight, they're having a fundraiser for the Booster Club at Crestview Heights.
Library is dealing with, Papa Murphy's again.
So the friends of the library?
You buy
Don't like each
pizza,
other?
35% of the,
Oh.
of what you pay for the pizza goes to the library foundation.
On a specific day.
Yeah, it's coming up in a couple of weeks.
We'll post something, the library will post something.
Yeah.
We'll make sure that gets out.
Jamie, anything?
I don't know.
Susan? The only thing I have is I asked Dan about the lights. Now that we got the sidewalk up on Crestline, it's kind of dark, and I'd like to see some brighter lights, so, and those of us that live up there, there's a lot of lights that aren't working, so I told Dan I'm gonna go and write down the numbers of those poles, and we can get those fixed and maybe put the new LED lights in instead of those yellow.
That's what I'm gonna pitch.
We had a customer come in today asking how to do that.
When you drive Crestline, there are some that go on and go off.
Go on, yep, those are the ones that I'm gonna write the numbers down, and hopefully we can convince them to replace those with the LED, because the LED seems to shine brighter to the sidewalk. Other
And
than
there's some that the only thing that works is the off.
that, when I go home at my house, it goes on and off, on and off. All right, so nothing else for the meeting, so we're gonna end the council meeting, going to.
Yeah, so you're adjourning the council meeting.
Yeah,
going into
we're
executive
adjourning the
session.
meeting and going into an executive session.
And you have to read the executive session titles in full.
Okay, pursuant to ORS 192-660 2E, to conduct or deliberate with persons you have designated to negotiate real property transactions. Pursuant to ORS 192.660 2F, to consider information or record or records that are exempt from disclosure by law, including written advice from your attorney. I just gotta read it once. Thank you so much for coming to our meeting.
Well, and we will
adjourn after the executive session.
Stay outside. We will, when we come back, announce that we're coming back into session and invite you all back in.
Bring it back to session.
Yep.
All right, city council is back in session after the executive session.
And I would like to make,
Is it on? All right, we're back in session from our executive session.
and I'd like to make a motion, that the city council authorize and ratifies the city manager's actions with regard to documented information to the press, to law enforcement, and to citizens detailing the results of the city's investigations, and that all actions taken in this regard, including advocacy to other governmental entities, are an expected part of the duties of the job of city manager to uphold the law, protect the city's citizens of Waldport.
And I'll make a motion. Someone else will second.
I think she
No, she just made the motion.
Oh, she made, so I can second. I can second. I think it's clear, I mean, I think it's important that we clarify this once and for all. All right, so we got a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What are you referencing? What,
Well, this all comes out of the Beachcomber, last December of 24.
okay.
And what can be released, what can't be released.
So you're saying you gave permission to the city
Yeah,
manager?
right. Right.
Why is it important to the city attorney or the council now to go back and have this clarified? Are you guys facing litigation? Are you concerned about lawsuits? Why is this an issue now?
It wasn't clear enough to mitigate against possible lawsuits.
We wanted to make sure that we were clear.
So it was necessary to come back to us to confirm that that's exactly.
What was discussed and agreed to in executive session apparently was not expressed in the motion.
That
It was
clear-
made in open session.
And I ran that
Despite the
meeting, and
fact
I guess I didn't make it quite clear enough.
Agreed about what council decided in executive session. What the action that was taken was not expressed clearly.
No, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That's my reading of it.
Yeah.
You agree
Yep.
with that?
So if I could just kind of give you what I'm seeing, and please correct me if I'm mistaken on this. You guys are ratifying it, we're giving Mr. Cutter permission to reach out to such agencies as the sheriff department and the Confederated Select and all that he was doing to including that the people in the Confederated Select were aiding and abetting theft from children. That's what you just ratified?
So basically what I guess I can say in a nutshell is, at the time, we told him, hey, send the stuff to law enforcement, the DA, or whatever needs to be done to send it out. I guess we should have spelled every single agency that could potentially be on that list. And so I thought it was clear in the meeting when I did that in December, but I guess I just wasn't clear enough. I didn't know I had to spell out every single possible thing. So this just kind of clarifies that.
So not just the information he released though, but also the other actions that he engaged in with all of that activity.
The discussions he had, I would say, were part of that. Every word that he might have said, I mean, he didn't go to that, obviously, or could have. So,
That's on that clarifying, because it seems to me that right here and now, you just ratified all of those actions and are backing all of
the
those
fact that he did, that he took those actions, that was at our request.
What was, how he writes it, that's not what we're saying. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, did we allow the city manager to send things to these different entities? And yes, we allowed him to communicate and to send information to these entities.
And those communications are part of his job. I think the motion also makes clear.
Explicitly, what they're saying, that as far as I understand it, as the employee in question,
Yes.
is that they authorized me to take the action. Now, how I took the action is the correct subject of review and complaint. So they may find, and they find legitimately that I overstepped in certain cases, but that I was directed to pursue these avenues, and that is part of the city manager's responsibility to protect the citizens, is what they've just said is responsible. That doesn't mean that they are authorizing me to accuse the tribe of anything. What it means is that they think that me having conversations with other entities about this is appropriate, and then they then review how I did it. And that becomes a part of whether they feel I'm doing the job.
That's what I was trying to get at is, we authorized him, yeah, he said a lot better. We allowed him to do it. How he said it, we may come back and say,
Yeah, we didn't.
we didn't like the way that went down, but we did authorize you to talk. And, you know, again, that always falls back on the council is, again, were we not clear enough? And do we have to redefine some of the things that we say, like, well, you can speak, but this is what you're allowed to say, or, you know, but we allowed him to say, but we didn't say how to say it.
It does work for us, so
Yeah.
if we don't like how we did it, then that's another step.
If I can ask point blankly, how do you feel about how he did it?
Well, that
So
would
they
be-
can't answer that right now?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Executive
that's part of
session.
the complaint, and I'm not trying to deflect or anything else, but they can't answer that because CIS has said that until they have that formal hearing process, that they can't speak to that. And believe me, I'd love nothing more, and this should be out there, I'd love nothing more than to get to the complaint process and review, and get it over with, but that's entirely out of my hands, and it's frankly out of the council's hands right now. It is sitting with attorneys and CIS because there are some real concerns about the complaints and whether they will result in a litigation from myself against the city. And that's not saying I'm sitting here threatening to sue the city, but CIS has a very different take on how that works. And I have to trust that they're going to figure that out and tell the council, okay, go ahead. And here's guidance.
So when you hear, you know, how come we haven't dealt with the complaints, you know, certain, this is why. The CIS has got to do their part before we can come in. So it's a big, it's all tied together. So
Can we guesstimate maybe a month, maybe 6 months?
I would say it will happen before the end of February.
Okay.
They're having regular, as I understand it, because I don't know the content of the meeting. My understanding is they're having regular meetings, moving through the different complaints and the appropriateness of the complaints occurred in the forum as provided.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And do you guys have any power to control Dan to stop saying at the end of the day? Any control?
A great example is, that's my favorite, that's the one I have.
And at the end of the day. No.
That's all right. During that time that he says that is when he figures out what he's gonna say next.
It's a process, it's a speech skill.
They switch back to,
Yeah, we'd rather I say, I'm not really sure.
you guys have anything else to say?
No.
Yeah, I want to ask the council, because I am just totally baffled by this. Maybe I'm missing something. When we had the ICE presentation, or sorry, when we had everyone show up for the ICE, before all that, I called Dan when I started seeing stuff online, and I said, Dan, I'm seeing a few things. I think we need to jump on this. And Dan said, I'm already working on it. I've already made calls. But now I'm hearing, and I watched a video that the mayor said, no, I had a resolution and I gave it to the whole council, but they rejected it.
Never
And I
saw
gave
it.
it. Okay, that's what I was thinking. I never seen anything. That's the first I ever heard of. So you guys are, yeah,
On the news.
on the news that it was presented to us. And I was like, I've never seen anything. So you've never seen nothing at all?
I have not received an email directly from the mayor since September.
So you have, okay.
I
So,
reviewed.
I just thought maybe I missed it.
Yeah, the only communication that the mayor made to the city about the meeting in December was about a complaint from a citizen about electromagnetic sensitivity
Okay.
and had absolutely nothing to do with ICE.
Okay.
As far as I knew, when we walked into the meeting, I had to inform the mayor that we were having a conversation, about ICE, and that was what we're talking about. I do know through other channels that she had been reaching out to communicate. I do find it very interesting, though, and this, you'll want to get this. I do find it very interesting, though, that it was reported to me today that where Waldport stood up, I wrote a resolution that was approved and then solved the problem by dealing directly with the property owner, and ICE is not coming to town. That when the same type of resolution, the same issue was brought up in the city to our south, Florence, that their council rejected it, and they did not have 200 people there. They did not have a grassroots. And I will say, and I'm speaking out of turn here, but I would say that you probably all would have voted exactly the same had there been one person in this room versus the 120 that were here. There was never a question in my mind, that regardless, conservative, liberal, ICE is not good for this.
No.
And I had full faith that my council felt the same.
And it's something that, yeah, it's something that I think we all agreed on. I know a lot of us, I mean, I don't mind saying, I'm a Republican and I was against it. And people say, how can, it just wasn't the right thing to do. So it doesn't matter what side you're on. This affected our city. And I looked at it as a whole and said, no, this is wrong. This should not happen. So I was amazed and proud that we all agreed on that. But I don't like the fact that, I'm hearing all these things out, I read or watching the videos or these interviews, and that was one of the things that came up when I watched it yesterday, that we purposely didn't accept this resolution. And I was like, maybe I'm the only one that didn't get it. But so I wanted to make sure I asked you guys to make sure that.
It would be on our email server.
I just looked.
If it had happened, it's all there.
It did not.
This is
It
my
did not
second month serving on this council. In that time, I've had one 30-second conversation with the mayor. No emails, no phone calls, no personal visits, no talking after the meeting, no talking before the meeting. 1 30-second as she walked by, and I'm wondering
That's
what
30
your
seconds
experience
more
is. Am I the poisoned one? Have you had individual conversations? Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
I can tell you, I actually never have a problem. I served with her as a councilman.
Sure, I did too.
And it's weird. She was totally different. She was this,
That's right.
I mean, we got along, we laughed. So I don't know what happened. We always got along. So, and I wish we could get back to that because we never had that tension. I mean, we never had the
We
tension. So
started off rough.
I don't know, but I just, yeah. It's almost like you wanted to sit down, and have a heart to heart. Say, what happened? What did we do? Yeah. But anyway, I just want to make sure on that resolution.
Could I just follow up with the ICE,
Yeah.
the deal at the LC Resort? When it was announced, Dan said that he had negotiated with the owner. Those negotiations were not made public then, they haven't been made public now. Has the city manager shared with you what was negotiated? And is that going to be, we talked about transparency. Is that going to, what was the negotiation? I mean, why would that guy give up? Seemingly, after me talking to his wife, she could care less whether or not ICE was there or not, the community could go ethics.
Right.
So, so what was negotiated to get her to go, oh yeah, we can have an empty hotel every day instead of, what changed? What was the negotiation?
Me.
Yeah, but I mean,
I
what was
think
given, what was the give and take?
I gave nothing that will cost the council anything. I gave my ability and my ability to help him accomplish his goals. So it will cost the city nothing. It will cost the council nothing. I gave, my my skills. I gave him my ability to help him get out of the situation.
He's wanting to sell the property. He's wanting out of it.
Yeah.
So
And I basically said, I have the ability to facilitate any conversation. I have the ability to provide assistance and ensure that as much as I can and capable of, without breaking the rules and without spending the city resources on it, that I will assist you to accomplish what you need to do.
During your own.
Yep.
So I guess
Whatever tool I have.
I guess what people may be asking is, what did he negotiate? Is it going to cost us any money?
Right.
Nothing.
Exactly.
If that would have happened, that would have been a totally different situation. Of course, as a city manager, he can't.
We don't all have to stay there for 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, yeah. Your families have to go there on vacation for a year. That's where you guys can take that trip.
Yeah, it was important enough to me, you know, as someone of Latino descent, it was important enough to me that I made sure that I would spend my time and resources on my own time talking with prospective buyers and doing as much as I could to facilitate the success for him. And he felt that based on my reputation, that was worth it. And that was worth it.
And we're, like I said, we're glad he made that decision.
And we
Because
just hope it.
hope it's it was something that we just didn't want in our community. And like Dan said, I mean, the fact that the news articles in their local newspaper down there today, I just read it earlier. Yeah, they voted against it and no one complained, which is crazy. But, you know, and one of the councilmen said, you know, he was a military personnel and or he was a military man. And his duty was to uphold the Constitution, and those are federal officers. And he's not gonna, you know, assault them or you know, do anything. Florence. And so they can do their own thing, and that's fine. I think we did our right thing, but at the same time, it's just kind of weird that we had so many people and they had no show up at all. Maybe they didn't know about it. This is made pretty public. But at the end of the day, we made the right decision, no matter what side of the aisle you're on. And I'm glad we stood together, including the mayor. We all bonded together and said, no, not in our backyard. It's not going to happen. All right. With that,
Yeah,
this
per
meeting-
capita, I think the community did pretty well at expressing itself.
they did. Yeah.
800 in Newport, 200 Waldport here, and 700 correspondence.
And we're
I mean,
another
we're
130,
2,000
140.
people, we're 2,200.
Yeah.
That's.
Well, I mean, you don't want none of the stuff happening, whether it's right or wrong. I mean, all the shootings, everything, I don't want that in my backyard. I have to deal with that now. So, all right.
Every day it becomes more obvious that we did the right
Yeah.
thing. Community knows what they want.
And we listen. All right, you guys, meeting is adjourned.